Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Novak Djokovic versus Grigor Dimitrov, Miami Open 2025 semifinal. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. It is Djokovic decisively 6-2, 6-3 to advance to the final. Now one win away of title number 100 in his career, playing the Miami Open for the first time since 2019, and boy, has he looked good. It's really his second blowout victory over a top 20 opponent this week after doing the same against Lorenzo Musetti. I believe that was a 6-2, 6-2 in his third round match. He also advances or improves to 13-1 lifetime against Grigor Dimitrov. And as we get into this semifinal, let's take it right off the top and address some of the big storylines. Dimitrov played a God mode return game in the opener to break Djokovic's serve right away. Novak did very little wrong. It was a really excellent collection of points by Dimitrov to build the early advantage. Then he swiftly handed it right back with at least 3 wild forehands in that opening service game of Dimitrov to make it 1-1. And I believe it was between the 1-1 game, as Djokovic was preparing to serve, there was an incident between Dimitrov and a courtside heckler that was bad enough that Grigor stopped and responded. Greg Allensworth, the chair umpire, came down from his chair to physically get in between the two just to make sure that the altercation wasn't going to escalate in any way. Of course, security was called and the fan was removed. I'm curious to see what Grigor says about this after the match. I would assume, my assumption would be that Grigor, given his experience, would be able to flush that out of his head, that whatever happened there wouldn't affect his performance for the rest of the match. You never know, but I would assume that there's nothing a fan could say courtside that would cut deep enough to leave that kind of lasting impact and affect Dimitrov's performance. But I think what others will theorize probably more prominently is that Dimitrov didn't physically recover from his quarterfinal match against Francisco Cerundolo. That was a match in which Dimitrov, after shaking hands the victor, experienced somewhat of a physical collapse. And I mean, he couldn't even get to the locker room without help. That's how dizzy, nauseous, weak he was. They had to get a chair for him when he was halfway between walking from the court to the locker room. He was in bad shape. He did not practice yesterday because he just felt he needed to conserve as much energy as possible to try to get ready for the semifinal. So I guess it's I think a safer assumption to say that the physical side, which is an area where Dimitrov has struggled for a lot of 2025, was probably less than 100% coming into the semifinal. But I still think to take that and to throw this away, say, oh, Dimitrov was horrible, it was a dud, nothing else matters, and that's the story of the match. I think that would be a huge mistake. To not give Djokovic his due for what he did on his side of the net, to me, would be wrong. And that starts with the serve, which is the one shot that, in terms of the execution of the serve, ensure how much pressure you're feeling, what tactics you're playing, that is affected by the opponent on the other side of the net. But as far as actually executing what you're trying to do on the serve, it is the one shot in tennis that your opponent, regardless of his physical state, has nothing to do with. And Djokovic delivered one of the great serve accuracy performances I have ever seen. In windy conditions, he made 87% of his first serves. And it's not like he was hitting a ton of body serves. It's not like he was playing his serve into safe locations far inside the lines. I think at times, maybe he felt pretty comfortable going into Dimitrov's backhand because he knew he would get a block return if he just made first serves conservatively into that backhand. The block return can be challenging if it stays short and low, but more often than not, It doesn't do that, and it floats, and it gives Djokovic time to set the terms of the rally with an aggressive +1 forehand that normally puts Dimitrov on the move, oftentimes on the move to his backhand wing, make him defend his backhand right away. And obviously that gives Djokovic really an ideal start to the point. But other than that, I think Djokovic was serving, first of all, average 117 miles per hour on his first serve, which is about what he normally does. And in these speedy conditions that have helped servers, and look at Jakub Mensik in the semifinal. He's basically served everybody off the court. I think Djokovic has done a lot of that with the pinpoint accuracy of his first serve. He is one of the great spot servers in the game, and his first serve as a weapon should not be underlooked. And that was a big part of this. Now, Novak probably could have served way worse and still won the match, because there was also an enormous consistency gulf between Djokovic and Dimitrov. Unforced error count ended up being 32-5. The shot that the gap was most stark is the forehand. Dimitrov made 20 forehand unforced errors. Djokovic made big old goose egg, 0 forehand unforced errors for Djokovic. 20-0. Yikes. That's quite a number, isn't it? Again, let's start with Novak. You should be impressed with what he did there, because it's not as if Djokovic was playing everything safe. It is the same dynamic that I'm talking about on the serve. You look at a high level of balls in the court. Okay, any pro can put a bunch of balls in the court. They're pro. The way in which Djokovic is able to execute that is what makes it so impressive, because he's not playing everything safe. He's just playing smart and disciplined. Overall, his shot selection, to me, is peak ideal Novak Djokovic this week, where he is moving well enough, he's willing to defend, he's trusting his shot tolerance, but he's also attacking well. He was deadly in this match when he had the ability to attack on his forehand, and that's where, if you miss, it gets chalked up as an unforced error. He did not miss. He simply did not miss. That in itself is incredibly impressive. Dimitrov on the other side of the net looked like he was over-pressing. There were 2 errors I was seeing. And look, Dimitrov just wasn't consistent enough. He wasn't able to... He was an error machine at times. Djokovic was putting enough returns in the court where Dimitrov was going to end up getting broken because he just wasn't reliable enough or stable enough. There were a lot of target errors on his forehand. A target error would be when Dimitrov has good footwork and he hits the ball clean, center of the strings, and he misses by a small margin because he was just trying to cut it too fine and make it too good. Djokovic's defensive capabilities make a lot of players overpress. Dimitrov was guilty of that a lot in this match. But then there were also a lot of positioning and timing errors as well. And that's where you point to the wind and you point to the fatigue, where maybe his legs just really weren't giving him enough there in terms of getting him in the right position on some of these forehands, because there were a lot of big misses, big margin misses, where the contact point was off, the balance was off. Those 2 things are related. And it got rather messy in some cases. First serve percentage for Dimitrov in the first set was also a really big problem. That could have also been where you saw maybe some tired legs or some sore legs manifesting itself, potentially. What's the deal with this mismatch? Let's end on some bigger picture stuff. It's now 13-1, 13-1 for Novak. And look, I think if anything, I'll get to a tactical side of it. I'll give you a tactical theory, but I don't know how much of it is tactical versus mental, because Grigor has terrible records against Nadal and Federer also. He's beaten each of them just once. The record against Nadal is very similar to his record against Djokovic. In fact, it might be mirroring now. Might be 13-1. Federer, I know, is 7-1 against Dimitrov. So he's beaten each of the big three just once. Grigor, obviously, they are three very different players stylistically, which just hammers home the point, drives home the point where I don't think that it's like, oh, there's an X's and O's mismatch here, which there's sometimes that can play a big role in a tennis head-to-head. I don't know that that's the case here, but if you want to go X's and O's, to me it's, well, Dimitrov, especially in his current state, is a very serve plus forehand dominant player. Look, the numbers flesh that out. I know he's very athletic and he's a great shot maker, but make no mistake, Dimitrov is a top 10 level player because of what he does with his first serve and his first forehand. That is why he led the tour last year in first serve win percentage. That's why he does not break serve at an elite level. He does not win second serve points at an elite level. He wins first serve points at an elite level. Well, what does Novak do better than anybody else that we've ever seen? He survives the serve plus one. His return and defense survival skills are the best. So to escape the firepower of Dimitrov's serve plus one, to engage in the rallies, now in Dimitrov you have a player who is less consistent than Novak, less balanced than Novak in terms of forehand backhand, because that Grigor backhand has some vulnerabilities, especially defensively. You know, Dimitrov isn't gonna win rallies against Djokovic from the baseline most of the time. So Djokovic is the better player overall, so you would expect the head-to-head to flesh that out. But I would say on the mental side as well, Novak has probably won 2 or 3 extra matches against Dimitrov because of clutchness and mental consistency in big matches. And I think that would be true for the other members of the big three as well when going toe-to-toe with Grigor. That's my read on the head-to-head, 13-1. Just wanted to give my thoughts on that. But Djokovic, heading into the final, let me end on this, A-plus level. A-plus level. He looks incredible. The serve accuracy has been standout, not just in this match. He is in an impeccable serving rhythm in conditions that reward that. His speed around the court has looked really good. His consistency is excellent. He's just not missing much. He's just not making a lot of errors. He's in complete control. And he's playing that 3-level game. He's trusting all 3 aspects of the game. He's defending well. Again, he's playing well from neutral in his depth, the quality of his rally ball, the consistency of it all. And he is attacking well with his first serve and his forehand. So there is, if there's one vulnerability, I think at times Hijikata, Hugo Carabelli, they've been able to put Djokovic in the red physically. So maybe the cardio has been a vulnerability. That's very hard to take advantage of. Very, very hard to take advantage of, especially because Djokovic is tough enough that he can push through those difficult moments when his cardio is in the red. So I just think it looked like from the very time I guess he beat Lorenzo Musetti 2-2, it looked like Novak is going to win this title. And let's see, because he's one win away. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.